everyone seeks validation.
Right.
So I was seeking validation from people that I love and I trust, and they weren't validating me. They would call me like, you think you all that? Oh, Uncle Tom, you think you better than everybody? I was getting called all these names.
Yeah.
And I said to them, I said, I'm gonna explain something to you. When you go in the world every day, you're auditioning for the role of life that you want.
Yeah.
And I've learned how to audition properly and accordingly to the lifestyle that I want.
Right.
You can't act like a hood dude trying to get to Beverly Hills.
No.
The reality is Beverly Hills won't allow it. There's redlining in everything, not just in real estate.
Absolutely.
There's redlining in the workforce, Kenzie. There's redlining in the life force. Right. There's redlining in the environment you live in. Everything you do, you're auditioning for the part.
Welcome to the Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast, starring Q the Boss.
Yo. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Let That Go Over Your Head podcast. They call me Q the Boss. Oh my God. I got my boy in the building today. My guy, Al, the legend, Taylor. Listen, I respect this man a lot, man.
Appreciate you, homie.
I'm gonna give you a little bit of flowers before we get this thing started, man. Listen, this is one of the very few guys that I really value as another black man to another black man. I love sitting and having conversations with this man. This man always speaks in his logic. He doesn't speak in his emotions and feelings. Very logical man. Today's episode, we're gonna give him some heat. So I'm gonna ask you as soon as we start off the rip.
What's up?
Matter let me give you your flowers. Let me give him his flowers, guys. I don't think men do that enough for men, bro.
You right.
You know, but I gotta ask you the question, why are we so divided as a culture? Why are we so divided?
Because it's easy to be divided. It takes work to come together and to be vulnerable as men, you know? It's easy for us to hate on one another. It's easy to pick up somebody else's flaws because at the end of the day, you know, we have our own flaws. And it's like the same way dudes do when they bedroom talk. Like if you doing some jacked up ish, you know, it's real easy to lay with your girl and tell her about what your man's be doing because at the end of the day,
you trying to hide what you doing.
You don't want to know what you doing.
That pillow talk is real. A lot of these guys are into that.
Word. So it's real easy to just be divided, man. All right, coming together and knowing what your flaws are, knowing what the next man's flaws are, and saying let's back to back together and work forward and be able to move. Yes. That takes work. That's difficult. That's hard. You know, so many dudes get caught up in the nah, man, he ain't this, he ain't that. Okay.
It is scary that your biggest hater should be your biggest fan.
Yo, it's like anything else, man. I need new haters because, you know, the old ones are starting to like me now, man. The old ones, you know, so it's like I need some new haters, man.
Yeah, but it's weird because, like, I'm questioning, like, when did it become, like, the thing when a person you're trying to help, they feel like you're jealous or you hating on them because you're telling them something truthfully. Like, you know that they're not prominently moving in the right direction. They're making poor decisions. And either A, you've been down that road already, or you know somebody that's been down that road, so you're trying to redirect them. You're like, hold on. I don't think you should do that. Yeah. When did it become, like, hating?
When they started giving out participation trophies. When you got a trophy for just showing up.
Just for showing up.
You know, back in our day playing sports, bro, you had coaches that would slap the hell out you, throw pads on, grab you by your face mask and throw you on the ground.
Yeah.
You do that now, you're getting arrested.
Come on.
You're losing your job. You're losing your credentials.
Yes.
So now kids have rights. So with that being said, when they get to a certain age and something as simple as be to work at 6:15 becomes an argument, yo, I was here at 6:19. Why you complaining? Because you're supposed to be here at 6:15.
They think they're doing you a favor.
Yeah. I'm here. Word.
And as a boss at your job, do you deal with that a lot?
I deal with it more than I don't.
You know, I want to say this, guys, on record. You know, we're not going to go into what my man do for a living, but at the end of the day, we're going to just go in today. He is very prominent in his position, right? And been in the position for a very long time.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I've watched him employ a lot of young middle-aged and older black men, and I say this with conviction, black men, and he is the first black supervisor in the whole district ever history.
That is correct.
Right?
That is correct.
But he employed so many. You know one thing I gotta give you your flowers for, and I'm gonna be honest? You don't get discouraged and you still hire him. Different people.
Of course. I'll never let what one person does discourage me from the next, because the reality of it is that everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
Everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves an opportunity. So I refuse to allow this person's mishaps to kill this next person's blessings.
Wow.
I didn't get to where I was because I was lucky. I got to where I was because somebody said, I'm going to take a chance on you.
Yeah.
And I refused to let that person down.
Yeah.
So when that person passed on, one of the last things they said to me was pay it forward.
Wow.
And so I'm honoring that man's wishes, and doing what he did, what he saw in me. He didn't have to put me where to give me a chance, So with that being said, who am I to not do the same thing?
You know why I love that? Because I come from the hood, the ghetto, rough life, and if I didn't come to a better environment and meet, I don't want to say better men, I want to just say more understanding of manhood. I met the men that understood what being a man is more.
Absolutely.
And it changed my whole lens and my whole perspective as far as being a man. I thought because I could fight, that was the prominence of being a man. But I'm looking at the culture right now, and in itself, it's so divided. And when I talk to people, I'm like, if these moments or these times aren't showing you the value of family and unity, then a lot of us are going to fall at the wayside economically.
Absolutely, brother. Because there's that difference between those who are and those who become.
Yes.
Like if you were a young person and you grew up and your father was a gangster and a hustler and your mother was a gangster and a hustler, and you grew up in that lifestyle and took on the family business, you have a greater understanding than a person who might have grew up with a family and a good family structure and said, you know what, I want to make money, I'm going to start selling drugs and becoming a hustler. Those are two people that share the same occupation, but one is and one became.
Yeah.
So the one that is has an understanding of certain things that the one became may not. The one that became, if he wants to be successful, he damn sure better at some point gravitate to getting close to the one that is and the one that are, because at that point you're going to understand and gain knowledge that you don't have.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, that when you ask why are we so divided, because those that are versus those that become, there's that middle. And those that became feel that they don't have to listen to the ones that are.
You know that movie, The Spook That Sat by the Stairs?
Yeah.
And it basically insinuate or basically explains the issue in the black culture. Mm-hmm. It shows that there was a saying in the movie where I'm not saying it exactly how he said it, but he was saying how pretty much the one that learns and get the knowledge, he's gonna go back to their community and they're gonna despise him.
Yeah.
They're not gonna see him as the person that can teach and elevate. They're gonna more so hate him for being, or her, for being the person that got the knowledge.
Absolutely.
I've learned that a lot of times. That's why I said the biggest haters be closer than you think. And the sad part is you don't even see them as competition. You see them as, I'm trying to help you.
Absolutely.
I think once you reach a level of joy and peace and tranquility in your life, you look for people to find that peace within themselves. Right. I told people, when I start acting like I had $1 or $2, is when I really had $1 or $2. When I didn't have money or I didn't have nothing, I act like I had more than what I had.
Absolutely.
And now that I have a couple dollars, I act like I have nothing.
Right.
And it's weird because it's like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But when you look at the culture in itself, it's like, damn, I'm trying to help people reach the same level of happiness that I've had.
Right.
When you just look at the area that's considerably a nice area, this area is a desirable area. I've owned at least 6 houses in this area myself.
Right.
And it's like, damn, I want someone to just get half of it, the experience or the joy that I got out of doing it. And it's like you try to help people, but mentally I feel like they're just divided because we have that. I always say that statement, Kenzie, my favorite line is, I'm not the captain of the yacht, but I'm on the boat. Yeah. I think people they're not comfortable with just being on a boat.
Well, think about it like this. Like, you had the pleasure of playing D1 athletics.
Yes.
How many people can do that?
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
No.
Why? Because you went through a lot of struggle and pain to get to a point where you were good enough to do it. You can try to teach people to get to where you feel like you would want them to be, but are they willing to accept the pains, the controversy, the hurt, and the pain that it gets to get there?
Wow.
Because you can't give them that. Because if you give them that, they're gonna either become your enemies or they're gonna become the thorns.
Wow.
The reality of it is, look at where you pulled yourself up from, and then ask yourself how many of those people were there when you were pulling yourself up.
Wow. Wow.
So you have to always remember, everybody's going to want your blessings, but they're not going to want a fifth of your struggle.
No.
And there are many, many, many times that you might have failed to succeed.
Wow.
You can't bestow your failures upon them. Because if you try, they're going to get stuck right there and say, oh, but you failed at that. Okay. I'm telling you where I failed at.
But I kept going.
But that's where you're stuck at. You're stuck at where I failed.
Yeah.
You're not stuck at where I am right now.
Yeah.
This is what you want. You want this, but you don't want to accept that.
You know, it's scary, and it's like one thing I'm hearing a lot. I deal with a lot of celebrities. I talk to a lot of people that's transcending, hardworking people. Yeah. And the one thing I'm constantly hearing is the more you become successful, the less your family celebrates you. The more animosity, the more jealousy comes with success. There's a boxer by the name of Clarissa Shields. I admire her very much. And she said she was going through family problems. She said she took custody of her sister's children, fed them, put a roof over their head, bought their parents cars, did all of these things. But for some reason, her sister didn't like her. And the more I'm listening to this story, the more I started saying to myself, I can relate to this story. Because it's like, I've realized that term entitlement really comes because I think the culture has a heavy dose of narcissism in it. Heavy dose. And it's like, why I'm going to say that is because one of the attributing factors to narcissism is entitlement.
Of course. Feeling
very entitled, even if I didn't work for it. I feel like I deserve it. Yeah. What do you feel about that?
It's like this, Q. If you say, yo, Al, man, you my man, yo, I got something for you, and you give me a brand new Bentley.
Yeah.
Like, yo, Al's for you, no doubt. The average person in 6 months is going to get mad at you or feel like you've done them wrong because you might have given them the Bentley, but you didn't tell them that it costs $5,000 for the brakes. You didn't tell them that when you go to insure it, it's going to cost them $10,000 a month to insure it.
They didn't think about that.
Hence the reason, if you see a Bentley drive by, some people look at the plate, the license plate. If they see a Florida plate, oh, okay, cool. They see a New York plate, okay, they must got money.
Yeah, Florida plate is probably rented.
Yeah, it's either rented or they got the 3-month insurance plan. Yes. So it's like one of those things where when people have that animosity toward, because once again, if you give somebody a house and say, here's a brand new house for you,
yeah,
and you don't furnish it, they're gonna be like, damn, he gave me a house with no furniture. But then you say, you know what, you my man, I'm gonna furnish it. Damn, bro, but you didn't tell me the taxes was $30,000 a year. So the thing about it is, even when we try to lift people up sometime,
yeah,
and we want to give them that jump, that lift,
yes,
that comes with the responsibility that if you didn't earn wholeheartedly the right to be where you are,
yes,
you're going to run into roadblocks that if you're not prepared to be able to face them, you can end up in a worse predicament than you were not having it. So we have to be very, very careful about, even when we want to give gifts to individuals, gifts of knowledge. You know, this generation, there was this kid some years ago on the internet. He was in the front of a school and he recited the Constitution word for word and the Bill of Rights. And they were like, oh, this kid is a genius. Like, oh my God, he did that. Then they asked the kid, well, what's the capital of New York? This nigga said Manhattan.
What?
So no, he's not a genius. He knew how to memorize something that was given to him. But he had no foundational knowledge of anything that he was saying. Therefore, you think the capital of New York is Manhattan. So
See,
it's like, yeah.
But that's where you see like people are institutionally intelligent.
Yes.
But they're not logically intelligent.
No.
They're not life intelligent. They're not even street intelligent. I think you got to have a balance of all three factors, right? Street, logic, and also books.
But don't confuse intelligence with smarts.
Agreed.
Don't confuse the two.
Agreed.
You got some intelligent. Listen, you have some intelligent people that are that are illiterate.
I see people like that. When you talk to them, that you can see that they're elevated and go all the way up.
Yeah.
And me and Kinsey, we talk about this all the time, the difference of a person having something called a fixed mentality opposed to a growth mentality. A lot of the people that I have conversations with, when I speak very confidently, and also I notice that with you speak very confidently because you think about what you're saying before you say it, right? But when I speak the way I speak, a lot of times people say you're arrogant. And I'm like, no, you got to speak with a level of confidence. I say my confidence shouldn't offend your insecurities, right?
People think you're arrogant because you're talking about things that are over their head, or things they don't understand, or things that. Okay, if you're making a point about wealth,
yes,
about growth,
yes,
and you mention where you come from, to some that's going to come across as arrogant because
100%.
At the end of the day, you're speaking from a point of experience to getting where you are.
Yes.
So they don't want to hear what you have.
Yes.
But that's part of what you're saying to make this person understand this is why I'm talking to you.
Wow.
So what you want to do is listen to what I'm saying.
Wow.
If you were of a different persuasion of skin tone, that's called educating.
Yes.
But when we're doing it to each other, it's called
arrogant.
arrogance. It's called conceit.
Did you hear that? And that's sad because it's true. You want to hear something today? Today we was having a discussion with a guy that I'm cool with. In the midst of the conversation, he said, let's say hypothetically, he said something, a scientific term as far as a sickness. If I call a doctor who specializes in that and he disagrees with him and you're arguing against that doctor, you're very crazy. Yeah. But the conversation was about sports and he was talking about the NBA. And long story short, I called a former NBA All-Star. Mm-hmm. And I called him and I said, yo, let me ask you a question. I asked him the question that he said. He wasn't in agreement with the guy. He didn't agree with him. He started yelling and screaming. And I'm like, yo, the world we live in today, it seems like the fixed mentality is the people that don't want to learn anything other than what they think.
Of course.
Once it goes against their level of comfort, it becomes problematic. Yeah. And I think your confidence, my confidence, goes against someone's confidence, so it makes them feel very less than. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, it's not even malicious or intentful. It's just that's their level of insecurity. Yeah. Yeah. You know? Well, let me ask you, now, dealing with a lot of times and being in the position you are, let's say hypothetically you got to let a guy go. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, they play the victim. Would you agree?
Normally. Very rarely will someone own up to, yeah, you're right, man. I know it's best that I do leave. No, you're going to play. I had a young man blatantly did something erroneous, and it's just like, well, why can't I get my job back? What? What?
Wow.
Really? You know, so it's like one of those things where, you know, again, it goes back to general, like I guess if sense were common, everyone would have it.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where if you're not taught certain tools, or even with some young black men, some of the young black guys that locally even that go to our schools, a lot of them are educated by white teachers.
Yeah.
So with that being said, some of the white teachers have that element of, I guess you could say, racial guilt to say, okay, let me do extra for this kid. Let me give this kid some money. Let me help this kid out because he might not have it at home, right? Whatever. So a lot of them take that I guess that I hate to say that family orientation toward that white teacher, not realizing that many times that white teacher, you're a statistic, you're a number. If they can get you out of school on time, they've done their job.
Agreed.
You still feel like now that you've graduated and you moved on to the next level that you can rely on that person the same way you did while you were there. And then they get their hearts broken when they find out that the love wasn't genuine. You were a statistical number that they had to win in order to keep what they need, what their job, keep their numbers up, keep what they need to be. So now when you go into the work world and you run into something on the lines of, like I said, coming to work on time, or you have that white boss that's going to sit there and say, listen, man, be out.
Wow.
Nothing I could do. Nothing, bye.
Wow.
You know, and me being the black guy, there are times where, and I tell some of the young black guys that I bring in, I don't have to yell at you. I don't have to scream at you. I don't have to belittle you. All I have to do is this.
You won.
Lift my hands.
You won.
I said, because the minute I lift my hands and say, you know what, you on your own, chances are you're going to crumble. Because if you're depending on them to have your back,
good try.
Good luck with that. I wish you well. I wish you nothing but the best. Good luck with that.
You know, it's weird coming from like a poverty situation and working my way out of it. As you said, crawling my way out of that, right? Mm-hmm. From the trenches. A lot of times, for a while, I suffered from two things. One of the things I suffered was something called survivor's remorse. Mm-hmm. And the second thing I suffered from was imposter syndrome. A lot of times I would go in spaces where I used to look at myself like, I'm not from this, right? I don't belong here. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. I didn't believe that I could have anything because I didn't believe I was worthy of it because of where I come from. Mm-hmm. Mentally, I was oppressing myself. Yeah. Psychologically, I couldn't believe it because, again, I didn't feel like I was worthy. Yeah. And then as I started believing that in myself more, I would look back to the people that I initially needed to co-sign me. Everyone seeks validation. Right. So I was seeking validation from people that I love and I trust, and they weren't validating me. They would call me like, you think you all that? Oh, Uncle Tom, you think you better than everybody? I was getting called all these names. Yeah. And I said to them, I'm gonna explain something to you. When you go in the world every day, you're auditioning for the role of life that you want. Yeah. And I've learned how to audition properly and accordingly to the lifestyle that I want. Right. You can't act like a hood dude trying to get to Beverly Hills. No. The reality is Beverly Hills won't allow it. There's redlining in everything, not just in real estate. Absolutely. There's redlining in the workforce, Kenzie. There's redlining in the life force. Right. There's redlining in the environment you live in. Everything you do, you're auditioning for the part. So I'm going to just say this survivor remorse thing, when I started leveling up and I started looking back to people I cared for, sometimes it was either A, they wouldn't know how to have a conversation with me anymore because the things I cared about before I don't care about anymore. And the last part was, I would say when I would talk to them, it was a level of rebellion because a lot of them kept seeing who I was, not who I was becoming.
Not who you became.
And I'm like, damn, like I'm trying to help you. I'm giving you a lifeline and telling you like you have to do these aspects. You're still at level one because you're not even leaving the first, you're not even taking the first step. I'm like, would you say you deal with that a lot?
Well, I put it like this, I grew up in Roosevelt.
Yeah.
And people will talk about Roosevelt's hood, Roosevelt's this. Yes, but I grew up with both of my parents. Both of my parents were business executives. Yes. Both of my parents made money. Both of my parents were considered elite blacks.
Yes.
And all of their, I guess you can say, their supporting cast. My uncle was a judge. My godfather was a judge. My godmother a lawyer. So I grew up around elite blacks.
Considered black excellence.
So with that being said, all of their subordinates growing up were white.
Yeah.
So when I would go to my parents' job, I had a bunch of white guys, hey, little Mr. Taylor, or things of that nature. So to me, it was never a thing of me ever feeling like I'm comfortable being the only black person in the room. And I know how to maneuver in that. And the one thing I don't do is I don't change what I am. I don't go in there stuffy shirt. No. I'm Alfred Terrence Taylor at all times. So whether I'm in Red Hook, Brooklyn, at an open mic spitting rhymes, or I'm in a white party with, the Republican Party, same dude. 100%. I don't change that. And that's the thing, because one of the things when they talk about, when you said how bougie and they talk about that kind of thing, the one thing that a lot of those type of white people don't like is the type of black person that's going to go in there and be all ha 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 and downing your own people.
You look fake.
They're going to look at you like, well, if you're going to say like that about your own people, I don't trust you either.
I wouldn't trust it either.
I wouldn't trust it either.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where, like I told you that time, I spoke at a college at CW Post, speaking to a bunch of young people. I said, listen, when y'all go back home, you're going to run into people that you knew that are going to tell you, oh, you think you better than me because you're in college?
Of course.
I'm going to look right into the camera and say, yes, you are better than them if you're doing that. Why? Because you're doing something to increase your worth, your self-worth.
100%.
You're doing something to better yourself.
100%.
You're not better than them because, oh, I'm a better person. No, I'm better than you because I'm doing something for myself. You're stuck where you want to be at. You're stuck right into this mindset that you want to stay at. You want to stay in the mindset of being in your hood, then that's fine. But there's nothing worse than a 60-year-old man walking around with a high school championship ring. Talk about, I made the game-winning shot.
Al Bundy
syndrome.
Wow.
That's the one crutch that a lot of people are stuck on because they were afraid to accomplish new great things. That age it being an excuse. Listen, I don't care how old you are. If they haven't lowered your casket yet, it ain't too late to do what you want to do.
100%.
Okay, it might be too late for me to be in the NBA.
Of course.
Of course it is. I'm
Within reason.
I'm 7 years older than the oldest person in the NBA.
Within reason.
Yeah, within reason. But guess what? If I wanted to coach, that would be something to shoot for. If I wanted to do something, if I wanted to work for the NBA, cool. I'm not going to be on the court balling. Those days are over. Yeah. I ain't hitting nobody with pads on anymore. Those days are over.
They're way over.
But I could surely work and do something there if I wanted to be in the NFL.
100%.
So people get stuck into this mindset that it's too late once you get to a certain frame.
Yeah.
Nah. To me, you at your best when you middle-aged. There are things that you can do now that, yes, you might not be as fast as you were, but you damn sure are smarter.
You know, it's funny because even if when I was faster, now I think faster.
Think faster.
Which is crazy because I don't move as fast as I did when I was younger, but I definitely think faster than when I was younger.
Absolutely.
And I know how to analyze it all the way to the T. I can play things out before it happens.
Right.
You know, I think that's a new skill that I've learned how. I remember when an older NBA player said one time, he said the younger athletes can out-athletic, they way more athletic than they are. He said, but they can't outthink us.
No.
And he said you can become wiser with age. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm understanding, some people, they're like fearful of aging. Yeah. And like when I talk to people, I'm like, it's weird. I'll give you a family scenario that I'm dealing with right now. It's 3 siblings. All 3 of them rent an apartment. All 3 of them struggling. All 3 of them don't want to come together to buy a home. All 3 of them have decent jobs. Mm-hmm. All 3 of them are bad with money. But all 3 of them don't see that the key to them changing their trajectory and fixing their situation is the unity. They're willing to try everything. One girl thinks that I need to leave my man and get a new man. One of the guys think he just needs another job. And one of the other people just think he needs to move down south. So all 3 of them think that it's 3 different things and 3 different problems that all 3 of them could fix. But they don't realize that one thing they won't say is, yo, me and my siblings may need to buy a house together and work with each other.
Let's need each other.
You see the division? Mm-hmm. And it's sad because they come out of the same wombs. Yep. They've been through the same traumas, same experiences, same everything with indifference. But in the same breath, they don't believe that working together is how you create the trifecta of success. Yeah. I think the unity, when I'm looking at people, I'm like, there's no unity. And you can't build, right? You can't build where there's nothing being planted. And I'm like, you guys got to plant something, but they don't want to hear it. You know? Our
culture allows for unification to be considered a weakness. The culture that we live in right now, that's looked at as weak. It's weak to ask for help. It's weak to say, yo, I need you, brother. And it just is, on the other side of the equation, it's weak for somebody to say, okay, let me help you. So it's just like, those 2 things right there are where we're stuck at right now. You know, when we talk about things like Black Wall Street and how we were unified as a culture and we had all those things together, it's like anything else. We had everything except for the one most important thing, an army to protect it. We didn't protect it. You know, people will go spend $5,000 to get Flex to DJ. They'll go spend $10,000 to get Amber Rose to show up. You'll do all that but want to pay $150 for security.
Yeah, crazy.
So when somebody sneaks a gun in and shoots the place up, now you can no longer do it again. Now you're trying to say, oh, what happened? No, the reality of it is security is the main element of growth and success. Security. Securing what you have, securing what you feel, securing what you need. Secure it. Insure it, secure it. All this all under the same category. Insure it, secure it, keep it near you. Yo, you said the 3 siblings and so on and so forth. There's a lack of security that exists there for them to feel like they can come together and work. And whenever they decide that whatever that may be, hopefully, God willing, they will have an opportunity to probably understand that they probably don't get along because they're the same person.
You know, you say it right. When I hear this term gentrification, right? A lot of times, I feel like it's evicting the original people that were there. And when I hear the term gentrification, I'm literally hearing the removal of the original residents.
Yeah.
And it's sad because when you have areas that were predominantly black, and a lot of the people that are moving forward, they're not knowledgeable on how to preserve wealth, right? The one thing is, I have a little cousin. He's graduated from, what school is that? Yale. And he always been more so, I would say, the upper prestigious, financially successful people. Very bright, very smart. But the one thing he said that he's always seen, he said a 13-year-old Caucasian kid from an upper echelons area knows more about finance than a 30-year-old black man from a lower financial area.
Absolutely.
And I said to him, why do you think that is? He said the one thing he sees is they teach the knowledge and pass on the information to the point it became like a behavior. Yeah. The one thing, I used to work at a Jewish synagogue, and the one thing I've noticed, a lot of times as blacks, we push some of the most unathletic kids to be athletes who are not meant to be athletes, right? And these parents be in denial. They be like, my son's going to the NBA. Your son is not even going to the CBA. He's not going to nothing. He's not built like that, right? And you see the success rate of a person making it to the NBA is lower than a lottery player, right? But now when you look at that narrative, I'll say to learning at the Jewish synagogue, they were pushing these kids' culture. After they went to school, the Wantars in these great schools, the Great Neck Norths and all of these schools, these kids would go to Hebrew school. And when they would go to Hebrew school, all they're learning about is who they are, to value themselves as a person. Right. I don't believe that there is when you walk a man into manhood, I don't see the bar mitzvahs. And the bar mitzvahs for the females, I don't see the bar mitzvahs that's showing them at this point you're an adult. I think when I talk to people that look like me a lot of times, they'll say they're 35 and be like, I'm mad young. I'm like, the average life expectancy is 76. So I'm like, at what point do you realize that you're not young in a sense of age? You could be young at heart and young at spirit. There's nothing wrong with that. I think everyone should still be young and vibrant. Right. But I think in the same breath, when do you fully develop or the maturation process catch up to your age where you realize like, I'm grown as hell. I got to get on the board.
Well, it's like anything else. When you talk about things embedded into the culture till it becomes a learned behavior.
Yes.
When I was 4, I remember my mother and my father taking me to the election booth and picking me up and saying, okay, push this lever, push this lever, push this lever. Now pull that back. And they would take my hand and pull it back. Until I got to an age where I was able to pull it myself around 8 or 9. Up until the time I turned 18, I could not wait till I turned 18 to be able to go into the booth for myself and vote. And from that day forth, I've never missed an election. Wow. Why? Because it's been embedded in me since I was a child to do it.
Yes.
Financial things are... I wish they would do a study on the success rate of girls that have had Sweet 16 parties versus those who haven't. Because when you really think about it, the Sweet 16 party is on the line with the Jewish bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras. Like every culture has those type of things. Yes. I feel like, we pick up on like things like Sweet 16 parties and things like that. Yes. We look at it as an event. But no, that's literally a coming of age type of a thing that can be, I would love to see what the success rate of that is scientifically. Because, like like being a part of things like cotillions and things of that nature.
Okay.
You know, like my wife's sorority has the cotillion. You know, like my Kappa Leaguers, like we do mentoring and so on and so forth about fraternity. So it's like these are things where we're teaching young people how to become adults, teaching them small things that you don't think about. I would never forget. This happened years ago. Q. Me and one of my homeboys went out. The chick I was dating at the time. She said, "Oh, I got a friend for you. You got a friend?" So I brought one of my boys with me. And I was like, "All right, that's the only one that's available." And my boy wasn't the coolest guy in the world, but he was whatever. Went out. We had fun. Yo, when I tell you, he was on the ball that night. Had her laughing, and she was cutie. So I'm like, she might be a little out of his league. But everything was beautiful. We had a great time. So we get to the restaurant. We going like that. You know, he orders a steak. The steak. The steak comes. One man got the steak, the knife. He's cutting into it. I don't know how to hold the knife and don't know how to hold the fork right. And then I noticed, like, after the dinner, her whole kind of vibe kind of changed.
She looked at him different.
I'm like, wow. So when I asked her later on that, I'm like, what happened? Like, y'all were having fun. She was like, well, my father kind of like told me, like embedded in me that if I go out with a guy, he doesn't know how to cut his steak, then leave him, don't trust him. And at first I thought that was some vain, egotistical ish.
Yeah.
Me being like, I don't know, 22 at the age. But then I remembered when I was like 5, at the dinner table, my steak got cold because my father would not let me eat until I cut it right. So when I got older and I'm at a business meeting at a restaurant and I'm eating steak and talking, I got a deal because one of the guys said, "You know what? You really know how to cut a steak well." I was like, yeah like, and I said, "I know to tie a tie too. Like, what else?"
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we have to take those little small things to start embedding into our children because those little things go a far way, man. They go a long way.
100%.
A long way.
100%.
Like you take for granted tying a tie. How important that is to know how to tie a tie. That could be the difference between someone taking you seriously or not.
Wow.
Not being able to tie a tie.
You want to know something amazing? My mom, I give her so much flowers because I didn't realize I was poor until I realized I was poor.
That's what's up.
You know, like for instance, like just using the steak theory you just said. I didn't eat steak until I was grown because we couldn't afford it.
That's what's up.
And just being honest, people like Kinsey always say, "Do you like steak?" I don't like steak. I've learned to. Now I eat it, but I never had steak like that.
Right.
You know, my theory is when I was younger, we would have maybe like pepper steak. You know, that's like the cheap steak.
Pepper steak and rice.
Yeah, like pepper steak. You know, like the corned beef, we call that bully beef. You know, that's how we eat. Corned beef hash.
Like, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what
Spam sandwich or whatever.
you know what I'm saying? But like initially, you don't know your cereal is no frill until you get around people who tell you that your life is so poor and you didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
You know, but initially when you looking back now, a lot of times I'm kind of happy that I had moments where I didn't really have nothing. Because the one thing people don't acknowledge and see with me is I know how to go without. Like I'm a type of person that will eat ramen noodles for a year straight if I have to, without a problem.
Yeah.
Like I'm the type of person, my people be like, "Damn, you making sardines and ramen?" I'm like, yeah. I'm like, all I need is something to eat to get by. Right? I'm like, every day can't be filet mignon. I said, but when I'm sacrificing to do another investment,
Right.
I'm like, I'm locked in.
That's what's up.
You know, I'm telling myself it's peanut butter and jelly every day. You know, but I've noticed that a lot of people in the culture, what makes us divided is genuinely, I believe that there are multiple cultures inside of one culture.
Right.
It's basically like, what do you identify to? For instance, a guy asked me the other day, he said, he brought up the Africans, he brought up the Black Americans, he brought up all of these cultures. And I said, the one thing that's not fair is because a lot of times foreign blacks put a lot of Black Americans in a box. And I genuinely believe that the Black American culture is made up of a lot of different cultures.
It is.
In one.
It is.
Right? So therefore, this culture might move this way.
Yeah.
This culture might move this way. It depends on who I'm around And I feel relatable to people that's from Mississippi, people that's from Philly. It depends on the way they were raised.
Well, one time in your shop, there was like a Nigerian dude came in your shop. And
Yeah.
we was in your shop, and he was talking about, well, Black Americans don't have culture. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
He was like, well, in my family, nobody eats before my father eats. I'm like, come to 350 at my house and
It's the same thing.
sit at my table, and my father ain't sitting there and going and try to eat. I said, it's not gonna happen. I said, so what do you mean? I said, I get what you're saying. There are certain cultures that exist in Africa or where you're from, but you're treating us as Black Americans like we don't have a lot of those very, very same cultures and those same idealistic ways.
Yes.
Now, yes, you have some of us that have lost the way of any of that because of whether society has done it, whether when you want to look at the financial aspect of things, the socio-economical side of things. Yes, that can lead to a lot of mishaps, a lot of misdirections.
Yes.
A lot of misdirections.
Yes.
Certain people don't gravitate toward the concept of family structure when there is no family structure.
Agreed.
A single mother with 3 kids from three different men. You can't look at that in the same way as you can look at somebody who has a mother and a father and so on and so forth. It's 2 different things. You can't downplay that woman because that's a different kind of strength. Because for her to have 3 kids by 3 different men and no man in her life, and her to still be able to take care of her kids is a different type of strength that I refuse to downplay because not everybody can pull that off.
No.
People in that predicament have done things like overdosed on drugs or committed suicide or ended up in whatever. So if you're a mother and you got 3 different kids, 3 kids by 3 different like that, and you still love and take care of your kids and make sure your kids get what they get, you're a different kind of strong.
100%.
Not everyone can accomplish that feat.
I come from a single mother of 6.
That's what's up.
And my mom, and this is no shade against no one that did the opposite, never was on government assistance, never was on no welfare, never got EBT, and my mom doesn't has the highest credentials as far as education. Mm-hmm. But the one thing my mother always had is the highest level of credentials when it came to work ethic.
There you go.
The one thing my mother always told me was, no matter what your circumstances are, you never make no one feel like that you're beneath them.
Amen.
And that's the one thing I love about her. Like, she said, even if you go to the restaurant and someone is buying a T-bone or a tomahawk steak, and all you can afford is a burger and fries, you eat that burger and fries with the same level of confidence that they're eating their steak. She said, because if you stay down while you're eating that burger and fries, and you save and you make the right decisions, you will be eating that steak.
That tomahawk will be yours.
You see the logic? And so a lot of times what you're saying is true based on how you're raised. I think culturally, people need to, we need to first identify what is the culture. Secondly, we need to start looking at those, even those single mothers. A lot of times when I see those single mothers with the multiple baby fathers and the women that have children with no men in their lives, a lot of times I look at the men in the world that don't care about those children as the problem. Yeah. And I get it, psychologically, she could have been through whatever she's been through that could have made her make certain decisions.
Right.
And I'm not here to judge her. Right. But at the end of the day, those children are here. And as men of prominence or respect of ourselves, we owe it to those children. Right. Today we was having a debate and they were getting mad because I said something about the Michael Jordan sneaker. And the theory about the Michael Jordan sneaker is I just feel like, I don't think Michael Jordan owes us anything, but a lot of times when your community, I own multiple businesses in the community, and I'm one of the longest tenured Black businesses in this community.
Hands down.
Right? So all these businesses have closed since I've been there. But I feel like logic says, I owe it to the people that kept supporting me, coming to this business and keeping my doors open. Because a person with a skill, listen to this, just so you hear this, a plumber with no clients ain't no plumber.
No, he's not.
A driver with no car ain't no driver. A barber without clients is not a barber.
No, so cuts hair.
You're just a person that can cut hair.
He knows how to cut hair.
So when you look at all of those things for the business that if you're a tax preparer or CPA and you prepare taxes and you deal with, if you don't have no clients that's bringing you work, you're not an accountant. You're an account without the tent. Yeah. So when you look at those narratives, I genuinely believe that Michael Jordan, he owes it to the culture because, yeah, you can hoop. Yeah, you can score. Yeah, those things are beautiful. But when it comes to the economics, Michael Jordan made his most money off the court than he made on the court.
Absolutely.
Michael Jordan's biggest contract, just so you hear this, his biggest contract was that $30 million contract he got, right? That was his biggest contract. Outside of that, his millions and his billions today is from us supporting the Jordan brand. It's not the playing career. So realistically, when you look at that, in a sense, I think if every man and every woman look at it like that, if you're a guy that made it out of a bad area and you don't feel obligated to go back to that area to help out the ones that you need to throw the ladder back for, then you're the problem. I feel the same thing about a woman. If you are made it out of a certain area, you could be the first black person in your, or the first person in your family to get a degree.
Yeah.
But you're frowning down on people who didn't have that mental capacity to break past the generational traumas or the curse that you were able to break past.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like you should help the next generation build up that same mental fortitude. I think that's the problem.
Major.
What do you feel about that?
That's a major thing. I mean, like I said, like I told you before, I didn't get to where I got because I was lucky. You know, somebody looked out for me. So therefore, it's my job to look out for others.
Yes, yes.
So the reality of it is if you've made it to a certain level, it's your duty and responsibility to go back and pull back.
Yes.
But I also understand that in doing that, you're going to run into roadblocks where we're trying to help certain people are going to let you down.
Yes.
You cannot allow that to hinder the next person's opportunity that you can hand an opportunity to.
Yes.
Just use better judgment. Sometimes there are times where I know a person might not be able to do it.
Yes.
But I'll look out for them anyway, if anything, to teach them that lesson.
Yes.
Because to me, that's just as big. I had one of my boys, he's no longer with us. Like I told you, my man Monster moved. Yo, he came to me, Al, man, yo, I need a job, man. Yo, I'm down. I said, yo, come through and fill out the application, bro. I said, I'll do what I need to do right now, no doubt. 3 days later, yo, Al, I can't do this, bro. I can't do this, man. Like, he's like, yo, I'll go and resign. I'll go sign a paper. Went and resigned. A week later, he got another job doing what he did, which was an X-ray technician. It made him go that much harder
to get back
to where he needed to be. And to the day he died, he always told the story of how that propelled him that way.
To go do what he got to do.
And to me, that's just as important as anything else. Wow. Because other cultures do it. In the other cultures, you could be working with a person that, I don't know, their brother killed your sister. But if he could do the job,
they get it done.
They're still going to hire this person because this person can get the job done. They might hate this person, but that's not going to stop them from bringing this person along to get the job done. We're sometimes willing to turn our back on a person because they might stole our Jordans in high school.
We're not from the same neighborhood.
Yo, you from Hempstead, I'm from Roosevelt. I'm the type of person where if a person's from Hempstead or or a person's not from Hempstead, I would probably look out for the Hempstead person because I'm like, listen, I know your style. I know where you come from, and I know worst come to worst, you're going to get the job done.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where many times us as blacks, sometimes I feel like we just so hard on each other. We don't show each other grace.
No empathy.
We don't show each other grace. If you go to McDonald's and if you get your fries, you're not gonna never go to McDonald's again.
You know, but that's what you said when I said earlier that narcissistic mentality. Man. One of the traits of a narcissist is the lack of empathy.
No empathy.
No empathy for each other. It's like, damn.
You go to a black-owned business and they mess up your order. I ain't going back there ever again.
Yep.
You go to McDonald's and miss your fries. You know what? Next time I go there, I'm gonna let them have it. You might not go back and get your fries that night, but you're going back to McDonald's at some point.
You're gonna go back.
You're going back.
The other day, me and my guy was talking. I used to work at a Jewish synagogue, and when I used to work at the synagogue, they used to have a grape juice. It's called Kadim. And it's a particular grape juice that's made by a Jewish company.
Okay.
And everything we had to buy there had to be Jewish.
Yes.
Yo, bro, I remember one year we tried to save them money. We did an invoice where we saved them a lot of money. They didn't care. They were mad that the money wasn't being recycled into the Jewish community.
Absolutely.
And one thing I've learned is a behavior. The one thing I remember, this lady named Judy Bloom. Judy and Burt Rosalind were two people that I admired extremely. Burt Rosalind said to me, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you can save. And he said to me, when he said that to me at a young age, I really didn't understand. And the funny thing is, I wanted to buy a Lexus at the time. He said to me, how much is the car note? I said, let's just say hypothetically it's 10K. He said, I would rather, how much you about to pay on the interest? I told him it was some ridiculous amount of money. It was one of them no-frill dealerships. Mm-hmm. And he said, how about this? How about you pay me the interest, I'll pay for the car cash, and I'll hold the title until you pay me off. And he cut the interest in half. Mm-hmm. But he kept saying, at that moment, he said to me, money only works when it's making money for you. He said, but if you're making money and you're selling your time for the money, you'll never be rich. Woo. He said, your job will never pay you enough to live next door to me. He said, but you can invest to live next door to me. He said, but you'll never work to live next door to me. He said, but you can invest to live next door to me. And when he said that, it changed my whole premonition of understanding finance. Right. And I started saying to myself, like, so you're telling me my job is just a security thing. Yeah. It's just gonna keep a roof over my head. Yeah. Right? It's gonna keep me stable. Mm-hmm. But what I do with the money is gonna ultimately either A, catapult me to success or hinder me and stunt my growth. Yep. And it took me a while to learn exactly what he meant by that. Because you get to put this on the charger, I don't think it's charging, right? Because it's going down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but now looking forward, it's crazy because the division, even when you look at the men and the women. Yeah. You know, one of the things I despise about social media is so many people talking about how they don't need each other. Yeah. I see some of the, no disrespect. Yeah. I see some of the brokest people on earth screaming how they don't need each other. I'm gonna blow your mind, and I'm pretty sure you could validate this. A woman balances me. Yes. I don't think I'll be as strong as I am without a woman. No. I think I need the woman that's secretarial, who'll do the things that I need, who's balanced with, who's considerate with time. I'm not good with those things, right? I'll forget that I have something to do and fail at doing it because of the fact that I'm not always looking at the long term. But I need somebody that's like that. Come do it. Yeah. Put the puzzle in the thing. You gotta look at it and see it. Yeah. So a lot of times when you look at those things, I realized that mentally I had to learn the unity aspect of life. Right. My mom don't live as great as she lived today if I didn't change my mentality. Right. My children don't live as great as they live today if I didn't change my mentality. Right. I come from a single mother. So naturally, my mom was very strong. She had to be to survive, right? Yeah. So her instincts had to kick in where she had to evolve to being a very strong individual in order to keep us safe and afloat. Yeah. But the one thing I've realized is it took me a while to learn a man's role and a woman's role are two different roles to the point where they're both extremely valued and needed. Yeah. And it gives the house and life a balance. Balance is the key word. You see what I'm saying? I'm a Libra. I'm all about balance. Balance is everything. So what do you think right now, you seeing right now, culturally, what's imbalancing us right now? Well, women have evolved and have grown tremendously independently, you know, and men, many of us, and I guess the writing was on the wall growing up because there's a lot of, when I start looking at, society now and where I guess you can say the pinnacle of society is as far as the age groups. Yes. A lot of the dudes that are in our age group, can't curse on here, right? No. Weren't anything then. So now they've only grown into grown men that have the same role that they played amongst us then now. Grown children.
So now you have women that have understand that they've grown and they understand that now.
Yes.
So now it's not that they don't feel like they really they feel like they don't need us now, because at the end of the day they're looking at a pool of bad choices. But the reality of it is the good ones are hard to find.
Very.
Hard to, amongst ourselves. Brothers that we can trust, that we can say, yo, let's vibe together.
Yes.
Let's build together. Let's
Yes.
converse. Let's talk about something other than LeBron James. Very hard to find.
100%.
So I can only imagine how some of the women who have actually taken the time to grow are now in that mindset of, it seems like the only people we can find that can have those kind of emotions with are other women.
It's crazy, right?
Which is crazy. And I can only assume at some point in time, the tides will shift, But that's why I work hard every day to try to change that narrative. And when we look at our history as blacks, as black men, a lot of times through history, men died trying to change narratives.
Yes.
They died trying to change narratives.
Yes.
Those narratives were a lot more racially driven, more, I guess you could say, socially driven.
Yes.
They died so we can now fight over Jordans.
Wow.
They died so we can now argue about the fact that women are dating women and men are dating men. Like, those are our biggest problems now. Not being able to get a job because we're black.
Wow.
Or not being able to do something. So they died for those things.
Yes.
To fight for those things.
Yes.
So we have it a little bit easier now, but now we find ourselves arguing and battling over things that are so inconsequential to me that I'm just
I don't even care.
like, wow, like, let's look at the fact that we're arguing over gold versus white gold as a ode to where we are.
Yeah.
So now let's scale this back a little bit and talk about how we can go back to the formulating of a structure of some sort of family, some sort of community.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that now. Like, yes, ladies, I understand that some of us are not doing well. Some of us have the understanding that we need you.
Yes.
I hope that some of you have the understanding that y'all still need us.
I hope so too.
Because you do. You do. More than just lifting heavy things and fixing
bills.
things and pay bills. No. Emotionally, that matters.
You know something scary? I want you to, today, I was in a shop, right? And the guy, Michael Beasley, he played Lance Stevenson the other day. They played a one-on-one for $100,000. I didn't see it, but I heard about the end result. The guy, out of everything, one of the guys in the shop said today, he brought up the fact that Michael Beasley painted his nails. And he was like, he's questioning his sexuality. The more I kept saying to him, that doesn't necessarily means that he's gay. He kept fighting it. I said, I think it's crazy, a nuance. At one point, you see the wild hair that these kids got wear now? That used to be considerably dirty when we were growing up.
Yes.
I said, things change. I said, something that I don't associate myself to doing, I don't judge someone else for doing.
Right.
I said, but again, the more I kept doing that, he kept saying, and you calling yourself a masculine? I said, you're not gonna take me out of my comfort. I said, in most cases, the feminine energy that you're projecting right now is making you feel the need to insult me for not standing on your stance.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here telling you, I don't care about a man's sexuality. Two consensual adults, I don't care. It's none of my business, right? I said, but at the end of the day, the things that really matter is, why is the wealth gap getting so broader?
Right.
Why are children undereducated? Why aren't men and women working together? Or why families aren't in unison? These are the things that I personally care about. So I said to him, again, I won't be distracted by the society's normal abnormalities. I know when I walk in my home what is considerably normal.
Right.
And that's what I control.
That's it.
I said, but when I'm in the world, I don't cry about the waves that's hitting my boat. I learn how to navigate them. I'm not sitting here crying, the waves just smacking my boat all over the place. Yo, we gonna row this way. We gonna get through this.
That's
I
it.
said, I don't worry about the things I can't change. Right?
Accept the things you can't change the things you can't accept, bro.
You see the logic.
Plain and simple.
And again, I feel like you clearly pro. I'm like, come on, bro, I don't care about all that, bro.
Listen, I haven't been to a heterosexual wedding in like 8 years. The past 5 weddings I've been to have been some sort of a gay wedding, some sort of a gay marriage. And let me tell you, they were elegant and the people love each other. That's all I care about, right? Whatever. I mean, one of them, the wedding gift was like a nice bracelet. I was like, that bracelet is dope. I'm like, oh wow, like that's dope. They love each other. That's fine with me.
Whatever floats your boat.
So if as a society, if those are the things that we find important, yes, togetherness, unification of men and women is something that we have to come to the terms with. That even in that has changed. The change is among us. So as men, we have to accept the fact that, okay, this woman has been on doing her thing for as long as she's been doing it.
Yes.
If you want to be a part of that,
Yes.
you might have to scale back some of what you might consider to be your way of being. Like, yo, it's my way or the highway. If that's your way of thinking, you're going to now limit the pool of women that you have access to.
100%.
Because many of them are not buying into that anymore.
No, they're not.
They're not buying into that anymore.
Not.
Period.
You know what's scary? I wish black culture, as much as we care to know who's gay and not gay, or who's a lesbian, I wish we cared about what is a Roth IRA as much as that. I wish we cared about how to grow our finance, how to invest and stop wasting. I wish those things became more important.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like the things that, okay, Allen Iverson outscored Kobe. Okay, that's cool. But the reality is, how are you going to retire yourself? Right? How are you going to be able to take care of your older self when your older self can't labor the way your younger self could?
Amen.
But these are the conversations that I care so much about. Mm-hmm. But it seems like, as you said, in a pool full of men, how do women find a good man when there's so many men that aren't about much? They don't stand on a lot of principles, integrities, and morals. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are morally on a decline because a lot of them, I genuinely feel like they're overly distracted. They're chasing a false sense of success than reality.
And then on the flip side of that is, when you think about it, some of the guys that, some of the men that are doing well, some of the women might look at them and say, oh, he's not my type.
Yeah.
So then it goes that thing. Okay, you want the 6'5" muscle bound, good looking dude. That chances are he's might not be what you're looking for in the long end. Why? Because he doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Because he's going to bag you already.
Yes.
So he doesn't have to really chase you and hunt. The one that should be hunting are the ones that are probably doing exactly what you say, accumulating wealth, doing those kind of things, saying, this is what I have to do to retire myself. So again, and that's why, like I know sometimes, like that one event you had where, or at the spot where you were bringing people together.
Yeah.
I thought that was a wonderful event because I saw a lot of good people in there that I know from different walks of life to say that, wow, like Q knows them, like I should have known. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I should have known Q knew them.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like one of those things where some of the things that you've been doing, I got to give you your flowers. That event that you had where we were about the black men mental health, phenomenal event, bro. The turnout was amazing. Yo, I still run into people to this day. Yo, did you speak at that event? Yeah.
Wow.
And so it made an impact.
Wow.
It made an impact. And the one thing that guys like you and I can't afford to do is to take for granted the impact that we make when we do these type of
100%.
things. And yes, for every 10 people that we help, you might have 1 or 2 that we can't.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay.
I've learned to accept that I don't overvalue who I'm helping anymore. Yeah. I value who wants to be helped.
There you go.
It's like the theory of when you're talking in a room full of people, the ones that may look like they're not paying attention are the ones that are. Yeah. There was a story with 50 Cent and Pop Smoke. 50 said he was giving Pop Smoke game the whole time he in his phone like this. 50 said he got so mad, he walks over to him like, yo, bro, I'm giving you game and you on your phone. He looked down at the phone. Pop Smoke was taking notes. He said, in life, I'm pretty sure there's people that was around him in G Unit, I ain't saying no names, who he's probably give the same level of game, if not in more in depth, who didn't value his words at that time.
Right.
And that's how I feel sometimes, where I want to help somebody, but I had to learn that the people that you may help might not look like who you want them to look like. They might be the people that want to be saved and helped.
Some people will look you right in your eyes and be thinking about dinner.
Yeah. And act like they into the conversation.
And like, right, yes. And meanwhile, everything you're saying is going boom, boom, boom. Meanwhile, yes, somebody like this, listening like that, and listen, everything you're saying.
Took notes.
Taking notes.
You know, one of my good young guys, Busta Rhymes' son, you know, he's getting into real estate, the oldest, Josiah. And he pulls up, we sit down, and as we're sitting down, he's really adamant about buying his first property. You know, and the one thing I love about him, he'll put on his calendar, let's sit down, let's bust this move, let's do this, I want to link up with you. And he made his time, set his time, was on time, and literally took notes the whole time. The one thing I always tell him I value about him is he knows how to unify people. He doesn't see it as a skill yet because he's still kind of young. But as he get older, he knows energy. He knows how to bring people together.
Right.
And that's a skill within itself. A lot of people overlook those things, but I'm like, bro, you could bring a room full of millionaires together and they might end up doing business because of you bringing it together. Right?
That's right.
You see what I'm saying?
That's right.
But if you got anything else you want to say before we get out of here today?
Nah, man, listen, man, just an honor and a privilege to be here kicking it with you, my brother. Like I said, man, you continue doing what you're doing. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing.
100%.
And we're going to continue to merge and continue to make things happen. This is our time, our world, and we're the ones responsible for making it come together, bro.
Wow.
People like you, people like me doing me, as long as we always know it's about us banding together, it's okay.
Let me say this. So I got the privilege of meeting Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. Oh, that's my, you know, I love your parents, right? And I'm going to say he comes from great stock. But the one thing is, and I value it, him, because he decided to procreate a healthy family again. And the one thing I love about it is, this man always sees good in black culture. Sometimes we're trying to fix the culture. You got to say bad things that people might get offended by. But the reality of all things is you can't fix what you can't acknowledge.
That's it.
One thing I tell you is this brother will always give an opportunity to a person that's trying to figure it out. And I've seen him do it on a multitude of times. Sometimes, guys, y'all got to stop trying to hurt the messenger and value the message. The messenger that might come give you the message, they may not look like what you want them to look like. They may not carry themselves the way that you may expect. That white man, ladies and gentlemen, that you may be waiting to come save you and teach you financial literacy, he may not look like that. It might be that person that was in your third grade class that used to be hood that grew up. It may be that person that you ignored for years. It may be that uncle, that aunt. It could be someone that you have to see the value in, understanding that the message don't come from who you want it to come from. It comes even if you're not ready to hear it. But one thing about life, don't sit there and say you didn't hear it. You just wasn't trying to listen. That's the you know the parable of the man that got 3 chances to be saved, but he didn't listen. The first one was when they came to Kinsey with the car. He didn't want to get in the car. He stayed in the house. The flood came. Then they came on a boat. He didn't want to get in the boat. Then he's sitting on the roof. The helicopter came, and he didn't get in the helicopter. And finally, he passed away. And then they asked him, "We tried to save you." And he asked God, like, "Well, why you didn't save me?" He said, "I sent 3 different."
I sent you a car, a boat, and a helicopter.
And what'd you do? So again, somebody may have sent you the car already. Somebody may have sent you the boat. And somebody may have just sent you this helicopter. But my ladies and gentlemen, please don't pass away not heeding the message and not learning from my brothers and sisters who are trying to help you. Don't let that go over your head.